it does go on today, and all of this that you see on stage is an accumulation of factual things that have happened in prison.
As much as Hollywood kept its unspoken rules before the age of wokeness, it is safe to say that Sal Mineo did not care too much for the rules. He was wild, nigh unruly, and more importantly, openly gay. However, he never really spoke much of his many lovers while he lived, but just before his sad demise, he revealed the names of some men he had a fling with in Hollywood, and the names will baffle you. But why wait so long before revealing the list? Did this revelation play a part in his demise? Join us as we discuss Sal Mineo's secret books of kiss and tells. Sal Mineo, Hollywood's prominent bisexual hero. Sal Mineo was once hailed as America's most promising young actor. His dark hair, eloquence, and blend of European swagger had Hollywood in a chokehold, and everyone wanted a piece of young Sal. Soon he was on the screen a lot, getting numerous gigs as a lead actor, and even became the first Italian-American to get nominated for the Oscars twice before he turned 23. At 17, he was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor at age 17, making him the fifth youngest nominee in that category. However, the same industry that let him in soon resorted to pushing him out, blacklisting him from the main rules and getting some serious articles posted about him. At first, he believed that it was some serious level of jealousy and pettifoggery from other big-name thespians he had met and surpassed in that short time that he had the whole of Hollywood and America eating from the palm of his hand. He was so young when he got his first breakthrough in Hollywood, playing John Plato Crawford. At the time, his biographer, Paul Jeffers, wrote that Sal was a heartthrob to many women, getting letters from young female fans and even older ones. However, one thing Sal Mineo missed was the order of things in early Hollywood. He was a young chap who had just gotten his first taste of glory, women, and the fun of being a part of Hollywood's huge constellation of stars. Ergo, it was difficult for him to contain parts of himself that were largely unacceptable in the early 50s. For some context, he had been getting so many roles as a child actor, who mostly played the role of a troubled teen who, for some reason, is unable to tell his place in society and gets lost in all the noise, needing an older man for guidance. This role became a huge part of his persona, and he played it like a professional. He had raving reviews from fellow actors, the media, and more importantly, fans, which made it nigh impossible for him to break out of the role. But then he got older, and these roles that he had been typecast for a long time had become inaccessible to him, and also rumors about his homosexuality had gotten stronger. How did he navigate the rumors of his sexuality while trying to break out of his dangerous typecast? The emergence of the Switchblade King. Following his troubles in Hollywood to get new roles, he was broken, shattered, as he suddenly went from 100 to 0. Where did it all go wrong? Was it his naive decision to let his extra bit of wokeness slip out into the world, or was he just not good enough? Sal was an amazing actor and was recognized by anyone who saw him on set. Hence, his sudden lack of roles to play had almost nothing to do with his talents. However, he finally found what resembled a chance for a role change when he auditioned for the role of Switchblade Kid in the movie Crime in the Streets, which was released in 1956. This role required a bit more physicality than he had ever had to put into most of the other jobs he had done, so he gave it his best shot, and he was soon recognized again, staying in the spotlight and even getting referred to by tabloids and fans as the Switchblade Kid. In a bid to stay away from being typecast as a troubled teen, he took on more roles that required a bit more manly vim. First, he played a Jewish Holocaust survivor in the 1960 movie, Exodus, and for his work in the movie, he won a Golden Globe Award and received his second Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. However, as his image had just started to get back to what it used to be when he was a child, rumors about his bisexual lifestyle were once again out in the open and threatening to ruin a career that had been built from scratch. At first, it seemed nearly impossible that a man like that would suddenly be out and about looking for a job in Hollywood. But it is Hollywood after all, where a star actor with one wrong move could be chewed up in the system and spat out with almost no consequences or a trace of where it came from or where the actor erred. His talent was obvious, but it seemed only pointed in one direction. His age and boyish features, which used to be his greatest strength, had become a hollow point, not just hurting his career, but expanding so much that it threatened to blow it wide open. While there might be no verifiable claims, one thing was certain: every deed in Hollywood comes out as a wild rumor, which the public may or may not believe, but it is always out there as a narrative, waiting to be picked up by anyone desperate enough. Rumor had it that Sal's sexual fluidity was a part of his Achilles heel. While there were other actors suspected of the same sexual fluidity, which was not acceptable at the time, Sal was too obvious, and most directors were not inclined to work with a man like that. But just how obvious was Sal? A man well before his time. Early Hollywood and America as a whole had already been on the path of exploratory decadence and debauchery since the early 1920s, the popular jazz age, when the American dream was a popular phenomenon and bit of class centered around how much trouble you could get into while defiling social norms. By the late 1950s, things that used to pass as norms in the social gatherings had taken a huge upscale, meaning that public knowledge of certain things was acceptable. However, homosexuality still took a back seat on the decadence spectrum, as it was so much more publicly frowned upon. Hence, there were a lot of men unwilling to leave their comfort zones for acceptance into a society ready to spit them out at the first airing. However, Sal was different. He felt different, and he was not willing to hide it, at least not as most people did. He found it imperative to explore all of the possibilities of his feelings, even if it meant that he bent to the unspoken rules of Hollywood, where the worst is either avoided or swept under the rug. While he was in the movie industry, he pursued his interests with vigor. Although no one could tell who he was having his flings with at first, as he kept it under wraps, he was getting involved in projects that sent a very dreary message to most people in Hollywood who watched him. Sal Mineo chose to direct and star in the prison drama Fortune in Men's Eyes, which contained an awful lot of homosexual content. Hollywood at the time was still seriously mired in the closet with fears of losing viewers, sponsors, and television rights. Hence, they chose not to delve too much into the avant-garde theater like Sal did. "I didn't think I was doing a gay play, just a good play. Hollywood hated me for that," said Sal. And right then and there was the beginning of the end of his career as an actor. But aside from the movies he was featured in, he had been rumored to be in bed with numerous men in the theater. For some context, James Dean was a serious suspect. The rumors, although disturbing, seemed like they were not going away, and he was barely getting any chance to debunk them before they festered into something more. However, it wasn't long before he got his chance to debunk the rumors when he was facing offstage reporters in the impressionistic staging. Sal Mineo is brashly grilled on whether he ever slept with James Dean, a question he refuses to answer. But Dean's friendship on the set of a movie deemed to be cursed, rebel without a cause, as all of the movie's stars later died violently, gave Sal some of its most aching moments. While he did not answer the question at the time, his silence was deafening and told stories of admitted guilt. Just what other men could Sal have been with? Sal's kiss and tells. Bold bisexuality is a knife-edge stance that no one would have expected a man in Sal's shoes to take. He was young, handsome, and mostly embraced his feminine side more than most men in the 60s did openly. Although his effeminate nature and the boldness to get involved in queer materials had killed his promising career in the movie industry, he made sure that he lived his life as his own, doing what he wanted and letting the world know about it, eventually because he just couldn't stay mired in the closet like society would have liked in the 60s. Speaking of his bravery, he was more than willing to share his experience of being with some men. At an interview, he mentioned having dated Courtney Burr III for 6 years. Courtney wasn't just some nobody, he was the grandson of a very influential Broadway producer, Courtney Burr. Although their relationship had been in the closet for a long time, only passing off as rumors in social circles, with no real evidence to give any substance or tangibility to the claims, Sal Mineo was more than willing to provide that substance. However, it wasn't just Courtney Burr. Sal confessed to more flings, relationships, and rejected advances from some of Hollywood's finest in his 1972 interview with Bose Hadley, who found Sal to be a rather interesting man, as his view on even films that weren't considered gay at the time was that they were actually homosexual pariahs that no one really noticed. In context, Sal, in his interview, explained that the Switchblade Kid character wasn't just a troubled lad looking up to an older man. Instead, he cites the child as a representation of the first gay teenager in a movie who had a crush on an older man. He believed that representation, although a common buzzword used in discussing inclusion for people who feel out of place and unfairly treated, is an important part of the movie industry. He claimed to understand how the queer community at the time must have felt to not be visually represented in the type of content that they consume, just like society's accepted sexual structure, hence his reasons for being completely out in the open about his relationships before his death. But there was one more thing about Sal Mineo that deepened the complexity of Sal's sexuality. He was engaged to be married to Jill Haworth, a girl he met on the set of the film Exodus in 1960. They were both portrayed as lovers in the movie anyway. Hence, it wasn't too far-fetched to consider that the sparks flew beyond the set and they fell in love. However, their engagement was canceled by Jill when she found out the most disturbing fact. According to Mineo's biographer, Michael Greg Michaud, Haworth canceled the engagement after she caught Mineo engaging in sexual relations with a man. Although he had his problems with fluidity, he had often been described as easygoing. Hence, his violent death on February 12, 1976, was a surprise to most people, including Jill. Is it just a robbery gone wrong, or does his sexual fluidity play a part in it? The unsettling death of Sal Mineo. Sal's death was heavily published in the papers as one of the biggest and most disturbing cases of a robbery gone south. On the night of February 12, 1976, he had reportedly returned home from the rehearsal of another queer script that he was experimenting with. P.S. Your cat is dead. It was 10 o'clock at night when he was parking his car in the carport below his apartment in West Hollywood when he was stabbed in the heart multiple times in what appears to be a robbery gone wrong. He was a young man in his prime, fighting for his life in a pool of blood from his torn heart. When his neighbor found him, he had lost too much blood, and he died on the spot from massive hemorrhage at the age of 37. While the criminal was caught and sentenced to a 51-year jail term and the case was closed in court, it wasn't the same for other people who were around him. Some simply believed in the court system as being right, while others, including Jill Hawthorne, suggested that there might have been more than meets the eye to the matter of his demise. Although Jill did not make the connection, the timing of the release of some of the secrets that she knew about his sexual relationships with men was telling. For some context, since Jill's marriage was canceled after she found out about his relationship with Bobby Sherman, whom he was in a relationship with, they became really good friends, meaning that they shared secrets. She had accepted who he really was, and she described Courtney Burr as the true love of his life. But Jill also believed that Sal's openness about his fluid sexuality in a period when it was unacceptable played a part in his undoing. But sources close to her believed that she wasn't just referring to his failed career at 23, but was also making references to important men in the industry whom he turned down. However, when she made these comments, she chose not to name names, whether it was out of fear for her own life or a sign of respect to the dead, while also trying not to open up old wounds in the heart of someone like Courtney Burr. No one can tell. Do you think Sal should have played his cards closer to the chest, other than just coming out of the closet about his fluid sexuality? Is there a chance that his death was carefully orchestrated by men in power whom he turned down? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.